so I'm going to take on a bit of an arduous task, and that is the rear loom repair. In a 5 series wagon or 3 series wagon is very, very similar. We have the wires coming in through these little internal wire covered sections here, which look awesomely great. There's no little rubber connector with the wires on the car anywhere. They've put the wires inside these guys here, but as all the forums are showing over time, the wires in there have not had enough play, and they are breaking. They're being stretched too much and coming apart, and I've got that situation. As I'm reading the forums, you're seeing lots of different, you know, there's reversing lights out, the tail lights out. There is so much. I mean, the power tailgate, there's a button to bring the tailgate up and down. The wires for that are obviously on here. You've got reversing lights, you've got tail lights, you've got brake lights, you've got number plate lights over here, you've got the washer, you've got the wiper, you've got the electric boot lid for here. So the list just goes on and on of how many wires they've got coming through. When you lift the glass, you'll see one of the wire things stays down and one of them goes up. So you've got wires here for things that are on the glass, which, as I said, are the catch and the wiper itself, and the washer as well. So all of that is coming through, and there's 2 sides, and the other ones are for all the other lights and so forth. Now, unfortunately, I've got a mix with mine. I've got a reversing light out on this side, and I've got the catch shorting on the glass here, so it's randomly popping open, particularly when I put my foot on the brakes. So I'm going to have to pull the whole lot out and have a look. And where we start with the pulling out is actually inside. We open up the tailgate, and the first access point that we need to get through is through the speaker grills. So we're pulling both these speaker grills out, and that is just with something plastic and flat to get them out, or even just with your fingernails to pull them down and get them out, and then pull the speakers out. So once the covers are off, it exposes the speakers and tweeters. Obviously be careful not to go poking into there. You don't need to take these speakers and tweeters off the board, but you do need to take the board out. So we're going for here and here, and then drop down and pull out the speakers on both sides, and see what sort of access we get to the loom. Okay, so I've got the speaker out. It is just those 2 screws, as I said, but up at the other side you've got clips. So there's a bit of wiggling involved in getting it out and flexing it past the roof lining to get it to come out. So undoing those 2 screws from that side, and then wiggle and flex, and then it'll drop down on the wire, then unplug. Once the speaker is out, what you get up is now here, this is your speaker wire, and this is the looms coming in. So we've got 1 more torque screw here, and there's only one holding that whole assembly in. We'll take that out, access these looms, and then we're going to have to make some decisions as to whether we're pulling the loom out. Like some of you will be replacing the whole loom, but normally the repair is just to pull it back to expose all of the broken parts, and then rewire all of the broken parts, and then put it all back in again, which involves pulling the tailgate apart, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So the next stage, and this is just a press fit, this is between the glass and the tailgate. This is going to get good access to that loom. Just clips in, so that just needs to be raised up from right at the end there, or maybe just lift that up and it should come out. There we go. That is out, and that gives us good access to these bottom wires where they bend through there. You see the loom is running along there, up under that cover, and then under through there. So we should be able to get some good access. Same on this side, the loom is running through there. So over the bendy bit where it goes through, we should be able to take that bolt off and access under that cover and check those wires through there. So we've undone that bolt. This just lifts up and then comes out like that to come off. And then here we need a screwdriver in to open this up, and then to separate out the black piece, which should get us access to the loom right the way through there. We'll then unwind all of the sheathing to bare the wires and see what we find. Okay, so I've cut the sheathing off here and just stripped it back to see what I could find. I've managed to split this open, the two bits of metal, but haven't unhooked it at the back as yet. Now I happen to know from my work down here, my issue is actually the reversing light. The left-hand reversing light is not working, and I already had checked the color code for that from the plug, so I knew what the color was. I just pulled on the wire and what do you know, pulled straight out. So it is a broken wire. I mean, that was pretty much what I was expecting it had to be. And all the rest appear to be very, very good and intact. So all I need to do at this point is join this wire and get a new wire through there. I have pulled on each of these wires to see if any others are going to come out, but that one just pulled straight out. So there's one I can fix to start with, so I'll get stuck into that. So what I need to do now is access that loom again from this side. So work that back as gently as I can. I do not want to break any more wires. I know they're delicate. So I'll work the boot back, open that, expose the loom here, find that same wire. Again, I can pull it back until I find the break, and then it's a matter of joining the wire, and then I'm going to try and poke that wire through. Okay, so for getting the rest of that casing off, I've got two screwdrivers, a bigger one for levering and a smaller one just for getting into the gap and like prying the bits of metal open. If you have a look here, this has got little raised parts which hold it into place, and I've managed to pry it off down this end. It's just got a hook on the end, and so there it is right the way through. So with that pried off, I'm now going to be able to get that new wire in really, really easy. So that's now with the door up so that you can get better access at it. This was all covered before with the main tailgate down. You'll be very careful. I'm going to take it out because I don't want to, yeah, look at the rub marks there on the casing. I want to take that out because when it's an electric tailgate, you don't get to let it up nice and gently yourself, and I don't want that to hook and jam or anything like that. There we go, she's out. So that was sliding it down and then out. So now we've got access to that loom. Actually, from the length we can work out, yeah, see, it's not broken here from the length and bend of it. It's broken right up there at the very end. So I'm still going to have to, now that I've pulled this out, I don't have to unwrap all of this and make a mess. What I've got to do is get to the other end of this wire, and I'm going to join a new piece of wire onto it and bring it through, because this is 11 years old. It's quite hard, so let's put a new piece in where it's got to do all that flexing and bending. So yeah, under the inside and find the best way to get into the loom. So in under here, I've pulled the rubber back, and underneath there's a big heavy braid, and I don't want to have to get into all of that and cut that to get to where the loom is. There's two, so make sure you get into the right one, work out which one you're getting into. I'm actually going to come behind it, because behind that braid, so see, if you can start cutting into that with a knife, you're going to cut wires for sure. So I'm actually going to come behind that. This is up behind the speaker, so you won't be able to see it, where it's just wrapped. And I can find the wire I want, I can pull it back again because it's broken off, pull it down, solder a new piece on, poke it through, and solder on and join it at the other end as well. Okay, you'll see my success now. I've pulled through the white wire with a yellow streak from the other direction. You can see up here, I bared the wire. This is after the rubber cuff because I wanted to try and avoid that sheathing that was there, but unfortunately I didn't. It was there anyway, so I didn't manage to avoid it. So very, very carefully cutting around. You've got to bring your knife up on the inside and cut away. You can't cut towards the wire, of course. So cutting the way around, bearing that, and this wire unfortunately was right in the middle. I couldn't find it from the outside, but then once I had it, grabbed it with a pair of pointy nose pliers. Again, being super careful not to break other wires while I'm at this. We'll find that out when we're done, if the others survived or not. And then I was able to pull it back, and pull it out to expose it. So now it's a matter of getting some wire and joining it, and then poking something through. I can get it through that rubber cuff easy enough, through here, and then through that hinge cover on the outside, and then join it on the other side as well. Okay, so we're soldering on here. I've chosen a black wire, so I've got my box of electrical stuff here. I've got a few wires to choose from. I'm one of these guys who keeps a lot of useful bits and pieces. Wires like this are very handy. I've gone with a black one. I think it's going to disappear better if it's visible or anything like that outside of the sheathing, and it's also got a very big thick sheath on it, this one. It's still flexible. When you're choosing a wire, if you've got an old box of wires, check it and check that it's flexible. If it's gone hard, no point putting it into this application. So I'm just going to wire a join here, wire the two together, and then solder them, and then tape it off. The same on the inside. I've just poked that through, and that was extremely easy. I just poked it through from the outside. Standing out here on the outside, I just pulled the rubber boot back in here, put my fingers in until I felt it, pulled it through, and we're done. So eventually I'm going to have that black wire running up there, so this join will be up here, but there's plenty of room again to hide this now very slack wire. Being loose and slack is going to stop it pulling tight and breaking. It's going to help the situation, so it's going to be super slack on both sides. So there we go, all done. I just got a little piece of cardboard and just hooked the corner under the hinge there, so as I was working, I had like a bench to work on, and no solder or muck was going to drop down inside the car. So that join is now done up the top, and now I've got to try and do it over my head up underneath. Okay, so there's the second one done. Twisted the two wires together right down to the insulations, and then put a bit of solder on it to hold it permanently closed and joined. I'm now going to tape that up, and then we'll start to put things back together. Okay, so here we go. I've just wrapped it up to neaten it up. There's a real trick. You don't want to pull this loom tight, because obviously that's what's going to break the wires, and there's not a lot of play in it, but just sitting it down there, it needs to go just beside the hinge here. So coming out of here, I'll put this back together. The secret to getting that back together is you can see there's little lumps out the side of one bit of metal and little holes in the other where the two halves click together. So what you need to do is line them up. That's how you get it in the right spot, and then clip it together. And this is the excess piece of wire I had down here of the older wire. So I've run the new wire right through to here. So where it's tight, where all this muck around and where this clamp goes on to hold it down, I'm going to keep with the new wire, and then just here where it's loose and there's no pressure or anything going on is where the old wire is. So to get this guy back on, it just goes on sideways. If you lift it up, it's a whole lot easier. Let's get that so where you can see it. Lift that up, and then it slides on sideways. That little black tab there goes into the slot. That clamps over the wire. Just all goes together like that. Then you clip your wire back over the side, and you'll see that will then line up with that bolt hole. So you've got that back in line, you've got that over the wire, you've got that under the black section here. So that's holding everything in place, holding it all tight. We'll put the bolt in, and we're done. And that broken wire is restored. Now, I haven't mentioned it yet, but you would have noticed I've got a little beanbag in there. When it came to working up underneath, up here, that was just gold. Just to be able to sit in there and support my back, it just made it from an absolute disaster of trying to sit there on a 45-degree angle to being quite comfortable. So I would definitely recommend, if you can get a couple of cushions or something to prop your back up while you're up and working up overhead, that's an absolute must. So now this black panel needs to go back on, and you can tell by the bumps in it where it goes over the hinges. So it needs to go back in here. Now it's going to sit in under the rubber, that's great, but it also has clips all the way along it. Now unfortunately, when I lifted mine off, it did come off very easy this end, and then quite tight that end. And when you have a look, the quite tight that end, the plastic plug is still in place, but here the plastic plug is broken, and here it's broken, and here the metal clip is sitting on it. So, and there's the plastic that it goes into. Where's my thumb? There's the plastic that it goes into. And then the last one here, again, broken. So what I'm going to do in this situation, which I believe is a good repair, is just to put a little blob of silicone rubber on all the broken ones. There, 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 and there. And the reality is with silicone, you can just tear through it. You can just lift it off and it'll come up, yet it will hold. It'll hold this in place and it won't make any noise. It won't vibrate. It's really a very good little repair. This is not under any sort of pressure or tension at all. It's just a dust cover or a prettiness cover. So that's what I'm going to do, is just put blobs of silicone on all of those and then press it into place. So the other part of getting this cover on, as it turned out, the center clips aren't so important. They are really guides, and I'm not going to lift this up too high because I've just got that rubber in place. But the center is a guide which sort of lines everything up, and then the clip, it's the center, but it's also the edges which are locking in place as well. So that little, I've just put a little touch, you can see, of silicone where that guide is and where it's going to connect down there. So it's going to stop it from rattling and just provide a bit of adhesion as well. But also, as you're putting this in, you've got a rubber seal in here. You can see the rubber seal there. But if you poke the plastic in, then the guides don't line up. You have to bring the plastic down straight and then bring the rubber over the top. What I've been doing here with this screwdriver, once this is all in place, is running along, and you can see that rubber edge is coming up and over and sealing on top. So you do need to get this rubber to seal over the top of that. And again, just by lifting this up a little bit, it takes all the tension off this rubber and it comes quite easily, and you can then slide the screwdriver along and get it in. Okay, so that is all beautiful again, and now we're going back underneath. So I'll just tidy up the wires in here and then put the speaker back in place, and it's all done.